Hello.
Hello, Fred. Just in time, my friend. We're just getting started here. Everybody, I'd like to introduce Fred Tahan. He's the Senior Web Application Administrator for Contra Costa Community College District. And he'll be helping me illustrate a successful customer story during our webinar today. Thanks for taking the time, Fred.
Sure.
Alrighty.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so again, just a quick agenda for today. We're going to discuss some of the benefits of single sign-on for all verticals, not just education. We'll spend some time with Fred talking about the customer journey for Contra Costa, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about PortalGuard before opening it up to questions. And one thing I like to cover early on is what exactly does consolidating login prompts behind a single IdP mean? So by that title, what we're referring to specifically is not just single sign-on, which is the primary benefit of an IdP, but how a real identity provider will give you so much more than just single sign-on. And that's what we're hoping to illustrate today. All right. So of course, the benefits of single sign-on for all verticals, just to give you a quick overview, it starts with single sign-on. That just opens the door for extended functionality. So a lot of identity providers will just give you single sign-on and call it a day. But a true IdP is going to use that as just a stepping stone for additional functionality. We're talking simplified access by giving you single sign-on not just to one or two applications, but to a whole host of applications that support just about any federation protocol. We're talking using that access to enhance security, being flexible with which applications we can integrate with, and also providing you a single portal for both federated applications and non-federated applications if your organization does require that. Also, another benefit of single sign-on would be that a good IdP is going to be fully customizable so that it can match the look and feel of your environment and sit in well without sticking out like a sore thumb. And if you go end-to-end, a good implementation will also help you streamline end-user communication. And just to piggyback on that, some of the common federation protocols that you're going to hear are SAML, Shibboleth, WS Federation, CAS, and even OAuth and OpenID Connect. And it's important to keep these protocols in mind because that IdP that we're talking about, if it's worth its salt, it's going to be able to support all of those instead of just making you pick and choose between one or the other. All right, without any more mucking about, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about our success story with Fred. So Fred, I know you went a little bit quiet there. You still with us?
I am here. Sorry.
No, not a problem, my friend. I just wanted to make sure so I didn't have to do all the talking for you. That's all.
Oh, yeah. I don't mind.
No, well, I think you have a pretty unique viewpoint to share with everybody. So,
Yeah.
just to set the stage a little bit, Contra Costa Community College District is a PortalGuard customer currently. They have been for a few years now. The scope of the original project, and Fred, feel free to interrupt me if I've got this wrong, but the intent was to integrate with about 140 applications, give or take. There's been a lot added since the initial implementation.
Correct.
Also wanted to be able to support a wide variety and number of users. So I've got over 50,000 active users listed here, but we're talking 3 college campuses, 2 satellites, and an ever-increasing enrollment count, right, Fred?
Correct. Correct. We are very busy and and there's a lot of logins and logouts and portal. Maybe I can go back a little bit in time to explain how we came about with to pick PortalGuard. Is
Sure,
that okay?
absolutely.
Okay. This was about 2013 that we met with PortalGuard, and that was in one of the conferences, the user groups that we have for all our colleges in California. And after the initial meeting, which we got interested, it took us about a year of, after meeting with PortalGuard, took us about a year looking other places, other providers also tried to figure out, which one maybe fits best for us. And it literally took a little over a year, year and a half, till we ended up deciding to go with PortalGuard. And it did. I mean, there was different reasons for each provider to look at, to assess, to see what it is that we wanted from a system. And we found out that PortalGuard was probably the most straightforward for us and could handle all the things that we wanted to do with the provider. As Christopher said, we started with the few applications that then we keep adding and adding and adding. And the good thing with the PortalGuard was that they actually worked with us in all the different things, that scenarios that we came up with. They actually would work with us to get it done, which was the big plus. And then we wanted to expand, and we actually have, when we talk to other vendors that we want to either purchase or work with, that one of the first things we ask is, can you connect to SAML? Can you do single sign-on? And if they can, we will, we would do it with PortalGuard. If not, we actually would get PortalGuard to talk to them to help us out to set it up.
Perfect, and that's actually a pretty good segue, Fred, I think, into the flexibility portion of your success story. So one of the things we've talked about. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. The flexibility was one of the important things for us, was that we wanted to be able to actually access the database, the SQL database in the back end. And besides the main points of the PortalGuard, which is the single sign-on, password resets, all of that. One of the other things, the selling point for us, was that we were able to access the data, the raw data in the SQL, not only for reporting, but we actually started using it and integrated it with other applications and other databases that we have. And as you can see, we actually embedded our opt-in or opt-out for our emergency services. We have another provider who sends emergency texts and alerts, and which we also use for other things, like if the class is canceled, if somebody's on wait list, and all that stuff. We use that opt-in, opt-out, and we use the data that actually gets provided in PortalGuard, like the cell phone numbers. We use that in order to send everything, to put things in there. We've actually gone further than that, and because PortalGuard connects to our Active Directory, we are able to get some of the information that gets updated in the PortalGuard database and use that for other scenarios that we have.
And just to put that in a little bit of context, Fred, for everybody who might not be as familiar with everything that we've kind of covered here, one of the things that we've done, we talked about single sign-on, is Contra Costa was able to use PortalGuard as the front door for this application that we've got on the screen here, this Insight portal. And that links to all these other applications for single sign-on. But as part of that front door, PortalGuard also handles the enrollment. So the user gets to set up their own account, enroll a phone number like Fred had mentioned, or an alternative method to recover their account or reset their password as needed. And the flexibility piece comes in with being able to sort of add on to or piggyback that built-in enrollment process. So what Fred was talking about was he was able to take the phone number that a user gets to enroll in PortalGuard that they've determined to themselves is a valid number to receive notifications at. And we were able to send that to an additional third-party service that Contra Costa utilizes and allow the end user to say, hey, I want to get messages for these particular systems. That's a one-time deal, and that actually gets stored in the database as well, so that Fred can actually, he and his administrative team can go through and consolidate their data. They don't have to go to different databases, different applications to be able to get the correct information.
Correct.
Just to provide a little bit more context.
Correct. And as you can see on the screen, that's our portal, and behind each of these tiles there are many applications, and they're all you can log in at all of them with a one single sign-on. So they're all connected.
Yeah. And actually, another thing that we were able to do, speaking of flexibility, I took another screenshot with Fred's blessing, was to fully integrate our password management or password reset capabilities inside the existing portal as well. So one of the things PortalGuard can offer on top of being an IdP is being able to provide a full suite of identity management. And I specifically mean self-service, so letting the user manage themselves, so they don't have to build up your help desk calls. And I think Fred can back me up on this, but for Contra Costa, one of the big benefits to come out of the deployment was a reduction in the help desk calls that you received, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. You're talking about, close to 50,000 students. And as we all know, they all, most of them forget the password, it seems. And we used to get calls and help desk constantly about changing passwords, setting passwords. So this took probably 70% of the calls for the passwords off of that table.
Perfect. And I know this little integration that I've got on the screen here, Fred, you and I worked on that together specifically to help keep it from being limited to unknown users. This little integration here allows your existing students, right, once they've authenticated, if they know their password is going to expire or if they just want to update it, this allows them to go through PortalGuard's existing process instead of enrolling in some other,
Exactly.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, just to give you a little bit more information, we specifically mentioned persisting through the backend integration here. I do have a couple data points just in case you wanted to expand on that, Fred. But I know it was mostly data collection, which we've talked about. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you've actually added some additional custom tables and data collection into the PortalGuard.
Correct.
Backend, right?
Yes. Yeah, because we are, with the opt-in and also, as you said, with other SQL databases we have on applications, we actually added more tables to PortalGuard database in order to make the integration much easier that happens on the back end. And as I said before, is with that, especially with this recently, I just talked to Christopher, and we came up with this idea of how I can actually access and get more data faster out of Active Directory. Some of the stuff that that we were sharing with PortalGuard, and that's the huge help. And also that actually it's been our partnership with PortalGuard throughout the years that we have, we've been since 2014 actually. It's been like this. Every time we needed something or we need to change something or we come up with new ideas, we pass it by PortalGuard, and they are, it's like we see them as more partnership than, just a vendor out there.
Oh, always appreciate the compliments. 5-year relationship doesn't
Sure.
sound like it's been that long.
I'm not getting paid for this.
That is true. Thanks, Fred. I didn't think we needed to go there, but
sorry.
No worries. Hey, it's part of your charm, so you'll never hear me complain. Well, before I get too distracted with our own little rapport here, another big thing, and I think it was probably one of the biggest ones, and you kind of hinted at it, was
the cost. Right? It was, as I said, we actually looked at other service providers, IdP providers, and by far, we are actually community colleges, so we don't have huge budget and stuff to work. So we were looking for something that it would be affordable, but we still would meet our needs. And looking at the time, it's like the cost was absolutely affordable. It was the best thing that it could have happened to us, really. And since then, I've seen other ones, and there are a lot of people, they have come in and knocked at our doors, and we talk to them, and the cost, it doesn't even come close. It does, and it was the huge important sell. And it is for most companies or institutions, but like I said, it's like the benefits that we got and the cost affordable, being that affordable, it was huge bonus point for us.
Thanks. And it's like you said, Fred, it's affordable, but just because it's affordable doesn't mean it's cheap, right?
No, not at all. Not even. In
the sense of, you really get what you need. And part of that, the value that you're going to see is what we've kind of hinted at throughout our back and forth here. And that is, it's not just single sign-on with the right IdP. With PortalGuard here, Costa has been able to do all this flexible integration, some of these back-end customizations, reduced help desk calls. So it's a matter of, the right dollar amount, but also the right return on that initial investment. And a lot of that comes with, knowing what you're going to get. And I think one of the biggest things that we didn't really touch on yet was that end user communication as well. So the clear enrollment process, but also I believe, Fred, you're also taking advantage to an extent of some of the announcements features that PortalGuard has, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, we have the announcement that it's really important. Actually, the password aging. We send emails, basically PortalGuard provides the application for that. We send emails to all the basically students and faculty and staff, and it's like 10 days advance, and then 5 days, 4 days, 3 days. Basically, we telling them that you need to change the password, and that's part of the PortalGuard applications and that it comes with it. So, and then of course the announcements and that you guys added, that's like extremely helpful.
Yeah, so it comes down to basically not just having the functionality, so password reset, account unlock, having that there is great, but being able to clearly communicate that to your end users ends up being a battle of its own for a lot of institutions, whether it's education, whether it's manufacturing. Getting your end users to actually use a solution that you put in place can be pretty difficult.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I think you and I have talked about a fair amount of time, is not only the user interface, communicating as the end users with the solution, but like you mentioned, those notifications as well. So having systems available that customers like yourself can utilize to submit, clear and concise notifications to end users that say, hey, we have this solution. Just so you know, your password is going to expire in 2 weeks. You can click here to reset it now, or we'll remind you again in X days.
Right.
And I think that's
it's actually very flexible. It's also very flexible that you can choose, how you're going to do the aging. You want to do it through your Active Directory. You want to do it through PortalGuard database. And it was very important for us too, because we had the choice of going one way or other too, which was really great.
And I always say about the setup itself. So simple deployment is something that we try to pride ourselves on a little bit. And it almost seems like a biased question to ask, Fred, but did you have any difficulties deploying your solution?
No, not at all. And the thing goes that anytime I've ever had any problems, and Christopher knows, I send an email, I open a ticket, and I've never had a problem with the support. Never. It's like if it's an emergency and I tell them this is urgent or anything, they jump in and they help me out. If I come up with some strange request, they're more than willing to actually sit down and talk about it. And the support, it's hands-on, is great.
And I guess it's a fair follow-up question to ask. Even if you had all the functionality, but none of the support, do you think you would have stayed as long with this kind of solution, or do you think that's really something that kind of goes hand in hand with a successful solution?
I think it's hand to hand. It really is hand to hand. I mean, there are people, there are products basically that they are, and we have bought them in the past. You buy it and you work on it, and then you get a problem or something that the support is that it's not there. Even though the product may be good, but if the support is not there to help you or to expand it, then it's okay, but it's not great. But with you guys, we've never had that problem. Like I said, I think we pick on you more than we should, but you guys always been there. You guys always been there. That's good. That's what I mean by partnership. When we say partnership, that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, and the flip side of that too, Fred, wouldn't it also be that you feel pretty comfortable with the solution yourself? I mean, you mentioned, whenever you have an emergency, you can definitely call on us. But I think it's worth pointing out that those kind of emergencies are usually, it happens once, you learn how to fix it, and it's usually not something that you feel too stressed about the second time around.
Not at all. Not at all. Usually, like I said, usually if there's any the support is most of the time, like I said, it was us coming up with some ideas or something, passing it by you guys. And the implementation, it's really easy. Like I said, we have over 140 different applications, and I didn't need you guys for every single one of those, obviously. I can set up a brand new third-party app coming through. If they know what they're doing with the SAML side of this, literally within half hour, I can have a single sign-on with somebody going. And I don't need any help with anybody.
Yeah, and I think also too, we mentioned you have about 140 apps, but you and I spoke previously. A good majority of those are like in-house developed apps that you guys have put together yourself, right?
Correct.
So
and when we were actually doing the first ones, because we were not familiar with how to set up an application, in-house application with a single sign-on. We had no idea. And that's when one of the times that we called you guys and you helped us how to do it. Which, it's like without you guys, we would not know how to do the in-house single sign-on. But after that, after the first initial, teaching us how to do it. But then after that, we just, it's like one after another, we've created the applications.
And that's actually brings me to a good point here with PortalGuard, and I think Fred's done a pretty good job of backing me up on this. You're buying a solution, not just a product. So it's not like we just give you the solution and say, yes, this is going to work, and we'll talk to you next year when it comes time to renew. We try to make ourselves available and actually help you get what you need out of your solution, whether it's just the single sign-on portion or whether it's looping in the password management side as well, end-to-end. PortalGuard's there to not only help you solve the problems of today, but also the ones that might come up in the future as well. Because we're not just gonna, stop there. Our success, at least on the support side especially, is measured by the success of customers like Fred. It's dedicated support because we want you to succeed. Not because we want you to keep coming back or not because we desperately need it or anything like that. It's a good business model. If you succeed, so do we. So we're going to do what we can to make sure that the solution that you purchase is in fact a solution to your problems. So end to end, I think consolidating login prompts behind a single IdP, it encompasses so much more than just bringing all your apps onto one page. It's making it work for both the administrative side and the end users. And that's where a solution like PortalGuard is really going to help you outshine the competition. So that's my pitch. Fred, I don't know if there's anything else, any last minute remarks you want to make before we open the floor to some questions today?
No, I'm just saying the system, the PortalGuard, it's really, it's very flexible. It is affordable for us. And with the partnership that we have, we've come up with all kind of stuff that we don't even really have time to talk about all the stuff that we've done with PortalGuard.
Well, there will be another webinar where we're going to go into a little bit of more detail, so we don't want to give away the farm just yet. But I do appreciate that, Fred, so I am going to go ahead and turn it over to anybody if they have any questions. I did check the chat. I didn't see anything, but I'm more than happy to answer any that you'd like. And if you're having any trouble unmuting yourself, just let me know. I can send the request from GoToMeeting as well. It's very quiet. Makes me a little nervous. All right. I do see one question in the chat from Jay, looks like Sills, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name. Do you have any customers hosting PG in the Amazon cloud, so AWS? As a matter of fact, we do. Actually, recently I just helped somebody set it up probably a couple weeks ago. That's one of the benefits of PortalGuard too, and Fred and I didn't touch on this too much, but the flexibility in deployment options. So by default, PortalGuard is a software solution, so you can install it on-prem, you can install it in Azure, AWS, any cloud hosting environment that you'd like. And one of the things you do have to consider is the directory. PortalGuard's biggest integration point is with the user repository so that we can manage claims for single sign-on and credentials for things like password management. But as long as your environment's configured correctly, and we're happy to help with that side of things as well, it's a pretty easy deployment as well. So good question. Thanks for that.
And actually, we use we do have an instance of PortalGuard on Amazon for our disaster recovery.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Fred. I actually should have remembered that. Yeah. Alrighty. You're welcome, Jay. All right. I think we did get another question from a contact us form, which was to know whether or not PortalGuard can integrate with Oracle's PeopleSoft. And Fred, I don't know, but I don't think PeopleSoft is one of the applications that you integrated, is it?
No.
No, but that's okay because I've done it before. PeopleSoft, for anybody who's listening in who is interested, it does support SAML, though you do have to do a little bit of work on the PeopleSoft side to actually enable that portion of the setup. However, once the application itself is SAML capable, integrating with PortalGuard is very quick and easy. Another good question.
Yep.
Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and submit an unmute request. Anybody else have any questions? Feel free to speak up or enter in the chat and I can read it off if you're a little shy. No worries, I get that. Might not sound it, but I'm a little shy in front of strangers too. Fred brings out the beast though, Well, while we're waiting to see if there's any interruptions, I don't know, Fred, any interesting integrations that came up during yours aside from the in-house ones?
Well, one of the things I don't know if we touched base with the SAML. We have SAML, but we also have case that or CAS. I mean, we also done a few of those. And I'm not sure if I included that part of the 140 applications that we did. We have, we have other ones. Like I said, we have done so much with the PortalGuard and with the other things that we do. And and as you know, that we are still working on that. Well, not started working, but we've been working on with a multi-factor.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't touch too much on CAS as it pertains to Contra Costa, but it is something that I mentioned during the early portions of the webinar, just as a supported protocol. Oh, looks like we got another one here. All right. Yes. So we got a question here noting that pricing includes a high upfront implementation cost, but annual costs are a bit more reasonable. Can you elaborate on how small schools might overcome this initial cost? So I can't speak too much for the sales team, but I do know that that's something that definitely comes up in the demo process with PortalGuard. So anybody who's interested, we generally have a requirements call to talk about your environment, whether your school, your size. And then we loop in the sales team as well to go over that kind of, what can we do to work with the initial cost. So I don't have that kind of information, unfortunately, from the technical side of point, but I do know that we do have options for you. So if you are interested, I would recommend either submitting a contact us form specifically, or actually just reaching out on live chat to our sales team, and that's an answer we can usually get to you pretty quickly. All right, you are welcome.
And I can tell you that we have, because we are part of the California community colleges, and there's a lot of colleges involved with that. When we have the user groups, and we have presented actually PortalGuard as one of the options that we use, and like I said, some of these colleges are small, and we are limited in budget. And anybody who's approached PortalGuard, it seems that they liked it and they got it. So I know you guys work with different institutions and different sizes. So
yeah, like I said, it all comes back to that relationship. We want you to succeed, and if there's a way that we can make that work, we're definitely going to do it. So with that in mind, I don't want to have anybody hanging out who doesn't have any questions or doesn't want to. So I'm just going to say last call for questions right now. You can go ahead and interrupt here or submit it through the chat. Worst case scenario, however, after this webinar is over, we're going to send out the recording for you to refer back to. And then if you do have any additional questions, and maybe you're just a little bit shy about asking them during the presentation, we do accept questions through our contact us forms or any of our website contacts. So there's no worries there. You can always submit that to us, and one of our representatives or myself will reach back out and answer any questions that you still have.
And if you have any questions for me also, you guys can, if you want to send it to Christopher or whatever, you can forward it to me. And
well, that's very nice of you, Fred.
I'd be more than happy to answer. No, we're here to help each other. So
that's a very good point. Like you said, it's a partnership.
Yes.
Well,
yeah. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got cut off my internet. I don't know what transpired between them, but yeah, I was wondering. I'm in the process of setting up PortalGuard still with my company. We're wondering just a question in general about a possible API, kind of being ever being released.
Sure. I mean, it really depends on which type of API you're looking at. I will say, I know we have a couple APIs for things like two-factor authentication, so it's definitely not out of the question. But you do bring up a good point, and I believe, is this Tony? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, you do bring up a good point that we didn't cover too much during our presentation, but that is the fact that certain things in the solution, and Fred can attest to this as well, if it's not something that's readily apparent, it's usually something that we have an option to pursue with you one way or the other. So you mentioned API. without going into too much information, because I don't want to do a grandstanding for support here, but one of the things that we typically offer, and we may be in the process with you, Tony, is saying, hey, we don't currently have this right now. Would you like to go down the road with adding it to the product with us? So you mentioned an API that we might not already have. So what I can do is follow up with you outside the meeting, Tony, just to get a little bit more information, but it's definitely a possibility.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Alrighty, and just so everybody knows, there is going to be a second webinar with Fred where we're going to talk a little bit more about the multi-factor side of things and how an IdP can also be used to improve your security. And that's going to be happening on July 17th. There is going to be another sign-up link as well. So we'll be able to get you on there for the actual day of, but we are going to be recording that webinar as well. So if you can't make it, you can always reach out and be able to receive it that way. Okay, and there should be a sign-up link actually in the email that you're going to be receiving today, or tomorrow with the recording, depending on how long it takes to convert. I'm sure everybody here can attest that technology never really goes exactly how you plan it, but we'll get it out as soon as it's ready. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I think I've pretty much droned on here with Fred for about 45 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar there. But again, please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions that you have. And I think we'll be more than happy to reach out. And I do want to say once again, thank you all for attending, and I look forward to speaking with you again during our next webinar. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. And Fred, again, I'd like to extend my thanks to you for taking the time out to join us today.
No problem. No problem. Anytime.
All right, thank you. Well, have a great day, Fred, and everybody else. Wish you the best, and I'll talk to everybody again soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.